Chapter 13. My Testimony. The chapter I wish I never had to write. On June 23, 2021, my sister broke her silence in regard to the oppressive nature of her 2008 conservatorship. Throughout the weeks that followed, she had the media and internet world stage to speak freely, to share her truth. During a couple of her statements, she made sweeping allegations using the words like, my family, and those who should have helped. At no point did my sister lift the veil on what or who is truly responsible for her challenges. In doing so, she allowed an onslaught of hate which put me and my own family at risk. Her vague references left me reeling. I have only ever had her back. From the earliest days of Britney's challenges, I have protected her at every turn. Too young to know better, to understand that it's okay if you're not okay, I helped keep Britney's emotional episodes hidden from the world. It started early, when I was in my tweens and had to diffuse rumors my classmates repeated, and I continued to protect her until just recently, when she decided I didn't need protecting, and threw me to the proverbial media wolves. Despite her comments, I still support what is best for her. I'm only saddened that in her current state, she is unwilling to support me in the same way. My siblings and I have been traumatized by the distorted vision my parents have of loyalty and success, the impact of exposure, and the flip side of fame. I'm not looking for pity. I want Britney and the world to know she isn't the only one who is left with the scars from our early years of delinquency and manipulation. I am immensely grateful for my career and the events that have led me here, to the life I now enjoy. But that came from luck, hard work, and owning up to my mistakes along the way. I want to reiterate that my early childhood was good, despite the growing chaos in our home, but at that time, we weren't different from other families. Everyone's attention, especially that of my sister, fed my later desire to garner her approval and acceptance. I'd do just about anything to stay in her good graces and allowed myself to be manipulated my entire life, coaxed by my parents to be a version of myself that supported the family. That is, my sister's ever-expanding career. Meant I was permitted to follow my own dreams as long as they were in line with hers. My aim was to try and be a good girl, and that left me vulnerable to my parents' machinations. Oddly enough, when I unexpectedly became pregnant at 16, I discovered the ability to think and make decisions that were best for me, without seeking their approval. As a mother, I can see how much a child yearns for their parents' approval. As I mentioned earlier, my sister was a mother figure to me, and maintaining our connection to know she loved me motivated me to do anything to keep her happy. I can look back with a new perspective, not exactly hindsight, and admit that pacifying my sister, keeping her needs met, and appeasing everyone along the way only added fuel to the fire that has grown into an inferno. Early on, I believed that if I tried to let her know how worried I was for her well-being, I would also risk losing my sister's regard and love. Later, I was caught up in my own life and my parents convinced me Britney was fine. Clearly, she wasn't. In recent years, and this summer in particular, my sister spoke to the world about her feelings regarding my parents' purposeful strategy to garner fame. Britney's impassioned statements included the wrongdoings of everyone involved, without any reference to herself. Throughout the past years, living through an unimaginable trauma with Maddie, I chose to make changes in my own life and tried to keep myself from being sucked into the drama in which my parents are so notably involved, but it hasn't been easy. From the time I was able to follow directions, I was instructed to be the most devoted sister. My parents didn't have to ask. I adored Britney from my earliest memories. It's usually the natural way of things. Devotion comes in many forms, and mine is deep, abiding, and perpetual. At the age of 7, while I was learning what loyalty meant to my family, millions of kids my age were kneeling at the altar of Britney Spears. While I was behaving, clearing a path, staying out of trouble, stepping aside, and making sure I didn't cause my sister any distress, Britney's number of fans expanded exponentially. And no one was happier for her than me. I knew how hard she worked for it, and all of the things our family had sacrificed to support not only her dream, but mine too. But there were concessions, excuses, and perhaps too much tolerance. Early on, I just thought, this is normal. It's how all families love and protect each other. But There has never ever really been anything normal or ordinary about growing up a Spears. We've always been critiqued and evaluated by the world at large. Therein lies the rub. No one knows better than my sister how calculating the press can be. How everything she says is spun and revised to suit a purpose. In our world, words matter and should be used purposefully. If I am guilty of anything, it's enabling the situation to continue by not speaking up sooner when she needed help earlier on in her career. I often wonder if I had, would it have made any difference? There are things I said to keep my family's name unsullied by gossip, and other things I should have said when I sensed something was amiss. I am now just coming to terms with how my family's philosophy of making everything appear fine and excusing Britney's behavior has led us to where we are today. As a child, I realized early on that my sister's career usurped anything else in my family's life. I was young, and I didn't have a say in the matter. I love my life now, but from the age of 7 until I was well into my teens, I often wished Britney would quit the industry and we could just go home to Louisiana. The demands of her career and my parents' focus on her left me feeling, if not insignificant, then inconsequential for years. So much attention was devoted to Britney, to protecting their asset, that I was left to take care of myself at all turns. The only way that I could do that was to try in vain to be the loyal, loving, and devoted Spears family member. No one protected me from the backlash of my older sister's struggles or prepared me for what our silence would cost. We were a tight-knit family torn apart by money, distorted truths, and undisclosed personal issues. Again, it's okay not to be okay. You can thank Piglet from Winnie the Pooh for those auspicious words. I finally received the wake-up call I needed to change. During quarantine, when all of us were living under one roof again, I saw the same childhood dynamic with adult eyes. Britney became enraged about something trivial. She came at me, screaming and getting in my face while I was holding Ivy, who was only 15 months at the time. Despite my best efforts, Britney continued on the attack, to the point Maddie had to get in between us trying to protect her little sister, until my parents finally got Britney to retreat. Me and my girls were visibly shaken. I decided, then and there, no more. Mama begged me not to upset my sister. Jamie, please don't upset your sister anymore. You know how she is. She can tell when you're anxious. I stood, mouth agape. I couldn't believe she was asking me to put my feelings and those of my children aside to once again pacify my sister. Experiencing this dynamic as an adult and as a mother was the catalyst I needed to remove myself from the situation. I wouldn't ask my children to pretend everything was fine, to soothe my parents or sister, nor would I continue to do so myself. Although the pandemic necessitated that we stay together, I made certain that the girls and I distanced ourselves from that cycle of behaviors. In my position as Britney's sister and daughter of Jamie and Lynn Spears, I didn't want any part of the legalities established to protect her. However, a couple of years into the evolving conservatorship, when Britney established her will, she asked me to serve as the trustee of her 2 children only in the event that she would not be able to do so herself. This was separate from her team's request for me to reside as a trustee over her children's trust in the conservatorship. After several months and careful consideration, I decided to remove myself from that role, citing that the developing issues could potentially create a conflict. My role was to remain impartial and simply be a sister and an aunt. I have never participated in the conservatorship as my sister's personal representative or financial conservator. In essence, I have never made decisions for my sister. I was always there to help her address any issues she brought to me. I was raised to be devoted, to protect my family, and to honor the privacy that all families are afforded. And now, after her testimony, that creed has bit me on the ass again. I have stood by and protected my sister, to my own detriment and that of my husband and our 2 daughters. Since her testimony, I've been accused and convicted of everything from theft to neglect in the court of public opinion. Jamie, the girls, and I have been threatened. There are times I don't feel safe. I spent the greater part of my life trying to protect her, even when it wasn't in my best interest, and had hoped that her statements would clarify that I had no part in any of her issues, and that I was always there to help her anytime she asked. I've always done my best to protect my sister, But now I have to put my two daughters' protection first. There are thousands of people who have turned their adoration into judgment and bias based upon the media's snippets of incomplete information and speculation. In the court of public opinion, if you are a member of the Spears family, you are labeled detestable and reprehensible. I am guilty of loving my whole family and wanting what is best for all of them. I always have. But now that I've created my own family, they come first, and our last name is Watson. In 2008, when the conservatorship was implemented, I was a 17-year-old girl with a new baby. My focus was single-mindedly on my daughter, Maddie. From my perspective, I only knew my sister's behavior had changed drastically in the previous year. Remembering that period of my life brings up the loneliness I suffered by not having my sister there for me during the one time in my life I desperately needed her. Looking back, maybe I should have done more when I lived in California. But again, I was a child. Britney was the adult. And she had promised me she was fine. By accepting her declaration, I enabled many of her behaviors that contributed to her downward spiral at that time. The world saw she was in crisis, and it appeared the conservatorship protected her at a time when she was in need. And now, none of this has anything to do with me other than that Britney is my sister. I will continue to love and support her, whether there is a conservatorship or not. I have no skin in this media spectacle, other than dealing with the shrapnel her explosive testimony blasted my way. But that pales in comparison to the heartbreak in my oldest daughter's eyes as she hears the whispers amongst her peers. But I know the truth. In a recent text from my sister, she stated herself, "I know it's not your fault, and I'm sorry for being so angry at you. Although I'm your big sister, I need you more than you need me, and always have." I pray for the day she shares these words with the world. I have no control over anything the media reports and thus cannot be held responsible for something I have absolutely no control over. It took me 20 plus years to learn what healthy devotion and loyalty to family look like. I still feel that, like every family, our family should ration when dealing with personal issues and trauma. There's not a person alive who wants their struggles to be reported in the news, followed up by commentary and judgments from their own family. It's unfair to assume that Britney's fame excludes her from her right to privacy or that of her family's. But privacy hasn't been afforded to any of us, and my parents' determination to keep Britney free from embarrassment and public humiliation may have come at a high cost that wasn't in her best interest. There are no sides here, and there can be no winner. I love and support my sister and my parents. I believe that my sister and the input of medical professionals that she chooses can choose the healthiest outcome for her future. For some, this ordeal may have been about her music, her contribution to the industry, and the money. For me, this has only ever been about the girl who gave so much in pursuit of her dream to sing for millions. The flip side was everything Britney sacrificed along the way: her privacy, dignity, and overall health. When the cameras turn away and everyone's moved on to the next headline, I will still be here for my sister, no matter what is said or done between us. I have immense gratitude for the blessings in my life. The people who love and support me make all the difference. I've trusted my instincts. Jamie and our daughters will continue to be my priority, as I am theirs. We put in all the work to build our life and everything else. The chaos that surrounds us will fade away at some point. My job is to protect the ones I love with honesty and vehemence. I realize that without health and balance in my life, nothing else matters. Life is a series of lessons that challenge us. My faith, tested and reaffirmed, ensures that I protect my family, offer unconditional love, and share the values I embrace. To lead a moral and good life, I have learned not to enable, and as much as I want to, I can't help someone who doesn't want it. Devotion and trust are earned, and, if we are lucky, reciprocated. Some lessons learned and many more challenges to endure. This all boils down to knowing who I am and living authentically. A little more faith and focus on our blessings may have made a difference in the past.